What up, motherfucks? It's your boy, the hater, up in this bitch, alright? And I realized that we focused a bit on Christian's debut in AEW and didn't really talk about AEW Revolution up in this bitch, you know what I'm saying? Now, here's the thing, alright? Obviously, the most important thing that happened, in my opinion, was Christian's debut. A lot of people have been messaging me and emailing me. Some people wrote it in the comments. And also people from my personal life, like my friends and stuff, have been kind of telling me, hey, Christian Cage isn't that big of a deal. Now, here's where I disagree with everyone, right? Like a lot of people maybe were expecting like CM Punk or something like that. And I understand why that would be a big deal, kind of. Like I understand in the sense of like CM Punk is a big name because he's a big name. You know what I mean? I'm not particularly impressed by CM Punk. I never have been, you know what I mean? I don't think he's particularly great in the ring. He botches a lot. His kicks look fake, which can also be explained by why his kicks look the same when he was in the UFC, you know what I mean? This guy is just not good, you know? CM Punk doesn't look like an athlete. He's never been convincing to me, you know? He's never looked like a guy that should ever be World Heavyweight Champion. And quite honestly, you know, I'm not really impressed by his quote-unquote charisma either, you know? That MJF charisma, quote unquote, again, right? We're just a guy saying things that other people aren't allowed to say. Don't you hate that shit? You know what I'm saying? Don't you hate that shit, by the way, motherfucks? You know, you have people like John Cena, Randy Orton, Triple H, people that I typically like, but let's be real, you know, like they'll get into like a promo war with someone, they'll start doing promos, and there comes a point where like John Cena and Triple H, or CM Punk in some cases, we'll just say something to shut down the conversation, right? Where the conversation isn't even about the subject matter that is being discussed anymore. It's about some personal shit, right? So CM Punk will like have an argument with Triple H about how Triple H, you know, whatever, screwed him and, you know, brought Kevin Nash out, right? And then Triple H will be like, yo, I didn't do it. And instead of talking about the merits of the conversation, CM Punk will be like, oh, your wife holds her balls for you. You know what I mean? Like it's, and people like laugh and cheer like retards because they think this is clever. Nothing clever about it, you know what I'm saying? Like anyone can say that. That's like MJF's whole shtick. You know, someone's like, MJF, you're not that good, you're not good looking, you're not this, you're not that, you're kind of a jobber, right? You have no personality. And his response is like, oh, I fucked DDP's daughter. You know what I mean? It's that kind of horseshit, like low effort kind of promo, right? That's all I got from CM Punk. It's just him complaining. Like CM Punk has two promos. He complains and he makes fun of people, right? Neither of which are like make great promos, right? They're not like, for example, the promos of Bubba Ray Dudley, where he comes off as confident and as a badass, right? Or The Rock, obviously, or Stone Cold, you know? The Rock, like, almost never complained, right? The Rock was always like, The Rock makes no excuses. You know, it's not the first time The Rock has gotten his ass kicked. It won't be the last, but, you know, let me tell you this, motherfucks, right? And then he'd go on and explain his side of the story, and then he'd say, if you smell what The Rock is cooking. So all CM Punk does is just bitch and moan about how he doesn't get opportunities, right? And then the other half of the promos are just him making fun of wrestlers about things that either have nothing to do with wrestling, you know what I mean? Or there are things that he's allowed to say that other people can't say. Like, imagine, for example, if someone gave R-Truth the opportunity to actually say whatever the fuck he wanted, right? He would be able to break down CM Punk in 10 seconds, right? But the facts are what the facts are. Certain people are allowed to say certain things and other people aren't. You know, you see this, I hate to say it, but I gotta say it like it is. You see this with John Cena all the time, right? John Cena, this was like a classic John Cena move. You know, like John Cena would be feuding with some lower guy on the card, and the lower guy would be like, Cena, you're not very entertaining. Or like, Cena, you know, you keep holding onto that belt. You know, I haven't got any opportunities, right? And then Cena would just say some John Cena, like, vague and general type shit, and it would be the end of that, you know? He's allowed to say certain things, right? You see this all the time when one wrestler is higher up on the card than the other wrestler, right? Triple H does it too. You know, he even did it to CM Punk, where CM Punk is like, I don't drink and I don't smoke. And then Triple H is like, neither do I. But I don't look like I just went on like a 7-week, like, you know, crack binge with Amy Winehouse. Rest in peace, Amy. You know, it's that kind of shit, right? Like Triple H says that kind of shit where it's like, oh, well, you know CM Punk can't say that to Triple H, you know, until it was time for him to say it, right? You know that Triple H can look at Bobby Roode, for example, and be like, you know, Bobby Roode, you're a jobber and I hired you, right? Bobby Roode can't go to Triple H and be like, hey, man, you slept your way to the top. He's just not allowed to do that, right? And all of CM Punk's promos, all of his great mic work is just that. Like, he's not good, you know? But that, never mind. That's neither here nor there. CM Douche can suck a ball, you know? I don't think it'd be, like, good for him to be in AEW. I think he's lost all credibility after the UFC. But not only that, I think he's never been credible. I think Christian would beat his ass in a real fight. And therefore, I think Christian is the better choice because he's better in every single category. And I challenge anyone to tell me one thing that CM Punk is actually good at. Not one thing that like the smarks have decided he was good at, but one thing he actually is good at. You know what I mean? Like, name one match, right, that CM Punk had where it was like, holy shit, I've never seen anything like this. You know? Name one thing he's ever done where you're like, holy shit, I've never seen anything like this. Name one moment, I mean, aside from like him beating John Cena, which was pretty cool, I must admit, right? And the match itself was pretty good, but I don't think CM Punk did anything special there, you know? So fuck CM Punk. I'm happy he's not the mystery whatever signee. The only person I would personally take over Christian would be someone like, I don't know, Brock Lesnar, obviously. If anything was possible, like AJ Styles would be better. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like that kind of guy. It would have to be someone that can actually go and have matches. You know what I mean? Like, I hate to say it, but the facts are the facts. Like, I'm tired of seeing Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. You know, the match of the running kick finisher. You know what I mean? It's just two guys running around until someone hits the kick. Their respective kick on the other guy, you know? Christian actually does wrestling moves. That's why like people like Bobby Lashley are such a breath of fresh air because they actually do wrestling moves. You know, but that's not here nor there. Let's talk about AEW up in this piece. You know what I'm saying? Alright, let's get started, motherfucks. Alright, so the first match, we're not even gonna worry about the stupid ass pre-show. I mean, actually I guess let's talk about it. I mean, what's the hurt in talking about it, right? So the pre-show was Dr. Britt Baker and Maki Ito. Who the fuck is Maki Ito, right? Versus Riho and Thunder Rosa. Like, who gives a shit? Britt Baker and Maki Ito win. They're friends, apparently, right? The trope of all the heels being friends and all the faces being friends continues for some reason. I don't know why, but it does, right? This match had meaningless written all over it. Nobody cares who wins this match. There's no like, you know, there's no rub that anyone gets from beating Maki Ito, you know? So who cares, right? Next up, we had the Young Cucks and the Inner Circle for the tag team titles. You know, considering what this match was, this actually was an okay match. But I do have a big criticism of it, which I may have mentioned in the other video. I don't know. I'm not sure, motherfucks. So you have to hear it again if I'm repeating myself. But basically, the match was pretty good. Like, like I said before, it gives you the impression that Jericho and MJF might win, you know? But you knew that Young Bucks were probably gonna come out on top. But it gives you the impression that MJF and Jericho have a chance, right? Now, the problem with this match, as I've stated before, was the finish. But not just the finish, the fact that, like, MJF no-sold, like, 18 super kicks, right? Because that shit happens. What are you gonna do? It's AEW. But it's the fact that you don't even have to have this entire match. Just have the ending of the match, and you're good to go. You know what I mean? Anything that happened before the super kick party, right? And then the Meltzer driver, everything that happened was useless and meaningless. You know, because nobody can reasonably escape after 18 super kicks, right? Nobody can kick out or break up a pin after 18 super kicks. So that's kind of like the issue that I had with this match. It's like this entire match happened, but the finish was so over the top. It was so over the top that I feel like if you did that thing in the beginning, if you did the super kicks as like the first move of the match, and then hit the Meltzer driver, the end result would be the same. Like, no one would kick out. You know what I mean? Like, you know those matches like where like the match starts and in the first 10 seconds, a guy hits a finisher, but the other guy kicks out because it's the beginning of the match? Like, it's like that, except this wouldn't happen in this match. In this match, it would end no matter what because, you know, MJF literally got kicked like 19 times in the head, you know? But I thought the match was actually all right, you know? One of the more enjoyable matches of the night. Next up, Casino Battle Royal, motherfucks. Casino Battle Royal for fucking, what's it called? A future AEW World Tag Team Championship match. Now, I'm not really a fan of number one contender titles, number one contender matches on pay-per-views as a concept, unless it's like, you know, the winner of this goes to WrestleMania type shit, right? But I'm not really a fan because, like, first of all, the tag team titles aren't that prestigious. And second of all, like, why would this match go on after the Young Bucks versus MJF and Jericho, right? Like, how can this match be more important? This match just determines who the next person is to fight the winner of the first match. So I didn't really like that, but it is what it is. The match itself I also found quite enjoyable, I'm not going to lie. Now there were some problems, of course, like primarily, who the fuck cares about 95% of these wrestlers, right? If not 100%. I thought, like I said, that Pac would be the guy to, what am I thinking of here? To pretty much win the match for his team, but it was Phoenix. It is what it is. Who gives a flying fuck? I like Phoenix, so I'm cool with that. Jungle Boy is like now the perpetual, last guy to be eliminated from these type of matches. So nothing really happened, to be honest. Let's call it like it is. Like, I don't really see Phoenix and Pac becoming tag team champions, so this match was kind of a waste of time. That's what I gotta say about that. Hikaru Shida versus Ryo Mizunami. Ryo Mizunami is the worst wrestler I've ever seen in my life. This was further bolstered by this match where she refused to wrestle like a normal person and decided to do some miming up in this bitch. Some miming, right? The match eventually devolved into Hikaru Shida continuously doing her finisher and Ryo Mizunami kicking out of the finisher, which is not cool. It's stupid. You know what I mean? Like, why would anyone be entertained by this? It's really dumb, So, of course, Hikaru Shida won. That's another thing that sucked about this match. It's like you knew, like, not that Hikaru Shida is so much better than Ryo Mizunami. Like, they're both irrelevant to me. Like, they both have the same character. They have no character, So I don't give a shit who wins. So that's one reason why it sucks. The other reason is even though they're the same character, you know that they're going to go with the same character that you're familiar with, right? They're going to go with Hikaru Shida because why the fuck would they now introduce to you Ryo Mizunami as the champion? Right? What difference would it make? Would anyone care? Like, honestly, would one person, except for Ryo Mizunami maybe, and Hikaru Shida themselves, would anyone care if Ryo Mizunami became champion? Like, what would change? What storyline would be impacted by this title change, right? That's what wrestling is about. If someone can be replaced by someone, a few videos ago, right, because I've been doing a lot of videos recently, but so it might be a few weeks ago, but a while ago, I did a video about people being interchangeable. Is there anyone more interchangeable than the Japanese women in AEW wrestling? They're all the same. Like, there's no distinguishing mark between all of them. Like, what would a fan talk about, Like, imagine, like, 10 WWE fans and 10 AEW fans gathering together at a restaurant. And the AEW fans say, "Did you guys see Ryo Mizunami beat Hikaru Shida?" Right? And then everyone that doesn't know who Hikaru Shida and Ryo Mizunami are would be like, "What? What's the difference between the two of them?" And then the AEW fans would be forced to say something like, "Well, one of them mimes and the other one comes out with a sword." You know what I mean? Like, no difference at all. Oh, the mime won the championship. Who gives a fuck if she mimes or not, This is ridiculous, motherfuckers. It's ridiculous. Compare this to, like, the Attitude Era. Like, think about this, for example, this great comparison that I've just concocted in my head, motherfuckers. Right? Remember Hardcore Holly? That's right, bitch. Everyone remembers Hardcore Holly. Eventually, he was joined by his cousin, Crash Holly, motherfuckers. And initially, the entire point was Crash Holly is exactly like Hardcore Holly. They look exactly the same, except Crash is smaller, right? But then Crash developed his own personality, right? Which clashed, motherfuckers, completely with Hardcore Holly's personality. You see what I'm saying? Like, it was so great. These are two guys that look exactly the same, but with completely different, like, personalities and therefore different gimmicks. You know what I mean? And then Crash Holly went his own way, so did Hardcore, right? They were together for a while, but even though they were the same character, right? Like, they were the same guy, basically. They developed different personalities and became totally different. Compare that to the Usos, who are exactly the same, motherfucks. Compare that to Riho and the other one, Maki Ito or whatever, right? Actually, I don't know these two broads. So compare them to Ryo Mizunami and Hikaru Shida, who look different, who don't have the same physiques, who don't have the same moves, but they're exactly the same, completely interchangeable. So honestly, upon further consideration, I give this match an absolute 0 out of 10 because this match meant nothing. Things have to mean something, motherfucks. This match is just someone won the tournament, and the person that won the tournament is exactly the same as the person that they're fighting. It's so stupid. Who wants to see this? All right. Then we had Miro and Kip Sabian versus Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. In my opinion, Chuck Taylor, he has some positive qualities. Like, he has a good finisher, right? But in my opinion, this match simply was Miro, a real man, right? destroying 3 inferior men. That's what this match was, right? Even though one of them was his partner. Kip Sabian, I don't even know why they put Miro with Kip Sabian. I don't really understand what the end goal here is. Like, no one benefits from this. Miro makes Kip Sabian look like a cuck, and Kip Sabian will never put Miro more over, right? Miro is clearly the only star, quote unquote. He's not really a star, but he's the only star in this match. Nobody else in this match will ever be anything important. You know what I'm saying? Miro probably also won't be anything important. But none of these guys in this match will ever be like world champion in WWE, basically. None of them will ever achieve that. So it's completely a waste of time, right, to put this on pay-per-view. So there you have it, motherfucks. I don't care if Orange Cassidy is over. I don't care if, like, you know, people like Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. Don't give a shit. The facts are what the facts are. But I will say this. The match does not get a 0. It does get a respectable 6 out of 10, actually, because this match was short, right, and the right people won. Basically what happened was Miro beat the shit out of the 2 guys. That was pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. Hangman Adam Page versus Big Money Matt Hardy. This was a horrible match. I didn't care about this at all. First of all, I know that Matt Hardy is like kind of reinventing himself as Big Money Matt, which I think has some potential. But, and it also does speak to the fact that Matt Hardy is really good at what he does. He doesn't need to reinvent himself at this point, but he continues to do so, you know? Now, I may be biased because I prefer the Big Money gimmick to his most recent gimmick before that, which was the ability to change gimmicks, right? So I think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, how else? I mean, what else would it be, right? It wouldn't be a step in the wrong direction because before this, he was teleporting around the arena. Now, with that being said, I'm not particularly thrilled by this match. Matt Hardy is not fun. It's as simple as that. I've always thought he was the better Hardy Boy, right? And Matt Hardy's talents are on the mic and on character creation. Let's call it like it is, right? Jeff Hardy has had like a few gimmicks, and only one of them, in my opinion, has been good. That was the Antichrist of professional wrestling. That was cool as shit. But beyond that, Jeff Hardy has been kind of boring, you know? Just a guy that jumps around and puts paint on his face. You know, he's good in the ring, but he's kind of boring, right? Matt Hardy, on the other hand, is better at character work, but his in-ring work, which is not bad, is just stale. Like, we've seen it for 20 years. It's like 20 years of Matt Hardy, motherfucks. Like, enough is enough. How many Twist of Fates do I need to see before I get bored of it? You know? Oh, Twist of Fate in TNA, Twist of Fate in WWE, Twist of Fate in AEW, you know? Like, who gives a fuck? So, I wasn't excited about this, and furthermore, I was really turned off by the pretend stipulation of this match. The winner gets the first quarter earnings of the loser. I don't give a flying fuck which one of these guys takes the other guy's money, and neither should anyone else. Like, unless this is part of some great storyline, like I thought, for example, maybe Matt Hardy wins, right? And because Hangman Page is forced to pay Matt Hardy his first quarter earnings, Hangman Page is now destitute, right? And has no money, and therefore must become Matt Hardy's slave and join his group, basically. Because he didn't want to join the group, but now he's forced to do it. That would be cool, right? That would actually make sense. It's like, all right, there's a reason why the money was on the line, and the reason was to further the story. But now that Hangman Page won, it makes absolutely no sense, you know? Who gives a shit if Hangman Page has more money now than he did last week? You know? Who cares? What is the impact of that, you know? So there you have it. I'm not really compelled about this match, nor the result. So I believe this match also gets, not a 0, it gets a 1. You know, because at the very, very least, like, you could say Hangman Page beat Matt Hardy, right? And Matt Hardy still has some value, so beating Matt Hardy is a big deal. You know, that was kind of the story of the night, I feel like. Next up, we had the Face of the Revolution ladder match. All right, let's talk about this motherfucker for a second, right? First of all, the thing that was hanging from the ladder was a cock ring, right? It was a brass ring, motherfuckers. Looked like a cock ring up in this bitch. The brass ring. Now, this obviously is a slight dig at WWE, right? Reach up and grab the brass ring. Yeah? I don't know what to say about this. I don't know how it's any different. You know what I mean? Like, what do you tell Pentagon, right? What do you tell Pentagon? He wasn't able to grab the brass ring. What do you tell him? The same thing that Vince tells Cesaro. You're not good enough yet, kid. Scorpio Sky won this match, and I am not happy about this. I don't like Scorpio Sky. I don't see anything in this guy. To me, he's like a discounted version of Ricochet, and he's older. and I haven't seen him on TV in months, you know? So I'm not really like excited about this. Also, there's so many people in this match that like either, you know, are bigger stars like Cody Rhodes, he's a bigger deal, have more potential like Pentagon. And then there's also a few people like Lance Archer and Max Caster, but more so Lance Archer, right? Lance Archer was pushed to the moon a few months ago even, right? He was pushed to the moon. Even like, I feel like 2 weeks ago, he was seen as a big threat. You know, he beat Phoenix in a one-on-one match as the main event. He was seen as a dominating force, you know? But I think it's time to accept the fact this guy sucks. I mean, like, putting Jake Roberts with him is a waste of time. Speaking of Jake Roberts, there was a point where Jake Roberts hit a short arm clothesline on someone. This was just stupid. It looked weird. It was on that Ethan Page kid, who I actually like. I mean, I'm not saying Ethan Page is like this huge deal, but Ethan Page is a guy that has stood out to me in TNA. Like, I've watched highlights, and he does stand out. He seems like a strong kid. He was power bombing people like it was nothing. He took a clothesline from Jake the Snake. It is what it is. No one really cares though. The match wasn't very fun. Next up, we had probably one of the biggest shams in wrestling history. We had Darby Allin and Sting versus Team Taz street fight. Now, I will admit, a lot of the spots in this match were pretty cool. You know what I mean? They were pretty cool. Like, there was a spot where Cage and Powerhouse Hobbs grabbed Darby Allin like by the feet and hands, or the feet and wrists, right? And they like swing him back and forth and throw him through this like glass window type thing, wooden glass window, right? And it looked devastating. More importantly, it was great to see these two men just manhandling little Darby Allin, you know? Darby Allin, I give him props for everything he does. You know, like, he's like getting thrown by two strong guys, obviously not as hard as they could, but nonetheless, throw him through like a glass window, right? Now, one thing I hated about this match, first of all, the unbelievability of it was ridiculous, right? People jumping off of like different stories and like crashing through things. It was really stupid, right? Obviously, we knew that Sting and Darby were going to win. Now, here's the problem with this match. And this is not a problem for me because I don't really give a fuck, but it's a problem for AEW, right? The match was a cinematic match. Now, I don't like this, right? People are saying it's because Sting is old and therefore he can't really wrestle and they don't want to expose him, right? So they do a cinematic match where they do like a million cuts and they edit that shit together. Cool. That's fine. Except for it's not fine because fucking Sting shouldn't be wrestling if he can't wrestle. You know what I mean? Furthermore, Sting is obviously the one star in this card that people would actually want to see wrestle live, right? Now, I understand it wasn't a full crowd, so obviously the TV audience is more important than the live audience, like, by a lot. But the facts are what the facts are, motherfucks. People paid because they thought they'd see Sting wrestle, yeah? Live. People may have also gotten the pay-per-view because they thought they would see Sting wrestle live. Not Sting act in a movie. You know, nobody talks about this except for me. It's the fucking weirdest thing. I don't understand. It's like, dude, at WrestleMania, you want to see Undertaker wrestle, right? You don't want to see Undertaker act in a movie with AJ Styles. Like, that's not wrestling. Cinematic wrestling is not wrestling. Like, it's wrestling the same way that Rocky Balboa is cinematic boxing. You know what I'm saying? No, it's a movie. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all. You know what I mean? Aside from the fact that a lot of cinematic matches have these ridiculous spots or stupid ass magic shit, right? Aside from that, it's also not fundamentally wrestling. So I cannot, in good faith and good conscience, say that Undertaker's last match was against AJ Styles. I don't consider that a match. I consider that a pre-taped vignette. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have a traditional match where the bell rings, the match goes on, and you entertain me with the abilities that you have. You have certain abilities, and you're going to entertain me with them, right? Typically in front of a live audience. And then someone's going to pin or submit the other guy or whatever, and the bell's going to ring and the match is over. And I can judge this as a good match. You can't judge a cinematic match as a good or bad match, because what happens is this. Someone says, all right, action, right? And then they throw Darby Allin through the glass. And then the director says, cut. And then everyone gets up, no sells everything. They walk up to the next area, right? getting ready for the next spot. This is not like one continuous shot, you know what I mean? So therefore, it's not a match. So as far as I'm concerned, Undertaker didn't win his last match against AJ Styles because he didn't have his last match against AJ Styles. And I believe that match should be stricken from Undertaker's record, you know, as a win, as a WrestleMania win. It's ridiculous. It's not a match. It's fucking stupid. Like, Undertaker could now, if he wanted to, now that he's retired, he could go and, I don't know, do a guest appearance on Mayans MC, right? Where he goes and beats up like one of the Mayans, let's say, right? Is that his match too? Did Undertaker just win his new match against the actor who plays Coco from fucking Mayans MC? No, but it's the same shit. I don't know why it's treated differently. Just because WWE made it doesn't mean that it's a match. Doesn't mean that it's wrestling, right? WWE also made the Marine 3, right? Did Miz beat all those guys in wrestling? No, motherfuckers, it's a movie. It's not the same thing. So this is further exasperated, right? Sorry, my pronunciation is shit today, right, motherfuckers? It's further fucked by the fact that people expected to see Sting live. It's one thing when you purposefully reveal, like, oh, it's going to be a boneyard match. It's all right. I don't expect Undertaker to actually do wrestling. I expect him to do some spots and people to edit it together, right? Also, if it was like two young guys, like if it was like, for example, Bray Wyatt versus Matt Hardy, and you expect the match to be like a live match, but it turns out to be like, you know, the ultimate deletion match, right? That's also fine, because it's like these guys can wrestle tomorrow. You know, they can have another match tomorrow, right? But Sting is a big deal, you know, and he's 61. And they're not going to have a match with him on Wednesday. Sting is Sting. You didn't fucking hire him so he could do vignettes for you. And if you did, you should pay him like zero. You know, at this point, why even hire Sting? Just get some actor to put on face paint and call him Stinger. You know, the end, motherfuckers. This match was shit. I will say it did have some cool spots. Brian Cage vertical suplexing Darby Allin and going up the stairs was pretty fucking awesome, I'm not gonna lie. Next up, we had the exploding barbed wire death match between Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley. Now, here's the problem with this match. Right, before we talk about the ending, which is another story. Here's the problem with this match. The match ended with the Good Brothers interfering, right? So it's like, I don't really see why this match was even done, right? Like it would end in this most like childish way, in this most non-climactic way, right? The ending was so anticlimactic, I guess because they saved the real climax for the exploding ring. But the ending was anticlimactic because it's like, okay, these two guys are wrestling, and then two guys come to help the bad guy, and they beat up the good guy, and that's it. You know, which is a fine trope for, you know, Wednesday Night Dynamite or for Monday Night Raw. You know, like the guy interferes, like, oh, like let's say like Bobby Lashley's getting his ass kicked, and then Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin come in and like help him, right? That's fine, but not on pay-per-view, motherfuckers. Imagine if that's how WrestleMania ended. You know, like Bobby Lashley's getting his ass beat by Drew McIntyre, and then Shelton Benjamin comes in to get a Claymore, and then Bobby spears Drew. You know, that's not a good ending to like a big feud like this, right? And this was presented before and after as the end of the Moxley-Kenny Omega feud, right? Now, before we move on and say goodbye to each other from this video, we have to take a few minutes to discuss the actual end of the match. So for those of you that don't know or didn't see, right, there was a countdown clock throughout the match for 30 minutes, right? In 30 minutes, the ring was supposed to explode, right? Everything, all the explosives would be set off, and basically it wouldn't be safe to be in the ring. Now, when you read or hear something like this, right, like Justin Roberts said it in the beginning, you know, you expect devastation and chaos. So let's keep that in mind, right? The match ends shortly before the 30-minute mark, and Jon Moxley is left in the ground beaten. Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers escape, right? They escape the ring. And then Eddie Kingston comes out, and he's like, what the hell's going on? We can't just leave him in there, right? So Eddie Kingston goes and just throws himself on Jon Moxley like one would throw themselves on a grenade. Now, that's cool in my opinion. You know what I mean? I actually thought that would be a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a good visual, right? It's like this guy is like literally throwing himself in front of a grenade for his friend. Like literally, not even metaphorically, like the ring's about to blow up, motherfuckers. So he's trying to protect his defenseless friend, right? Because he has some respect for his friend and he has love for his friend, right? Even though they're rivals. So Eddie Kingston does this, right? And man, do I feel bad for Eddie Kingston. The explosions go off, and basically what happens is like these, like the four corners, the pyro, quote unquote, pops off from the corners, but it's not pyro. It's basically like just a sparkler. You know, the kind of shit you see at nightclubs. If you order a bottle at a nightclub, they put these things on the bottle. So they had 4 of those, one for each corner. And then some smoke appears and you hear some firecrackers. And then Eddie Kingston pretends that he's dead. You know? Now, I feel for Eddie Kingston. I actually feel for him. I feel horrible for him because I can imagine this guy, you know, doing his job and covering Jon Moxley, hearing and seeing this, or maybe just hearing it, right? And thinking, fuck, what do I do? Do I do the logical thing and no sell it because nothing fucking happened? Or motherfucks, do I pretend that something happened and hope that the visual of what happened is better than what I think it is, right? At least from a distance. What does this guy do? You know, what can he do? There's nothing he can do. It's either get fucked or get fucked. You know what I'm saying? Like, on one side, he has to do his job, right? He has to do what the plan was. He can't no-sell it. Because what if, like, you know, what if it looks devastating, right? And to him, he doesn't think it looks devastating. And then the question is, how did this guy survive this? This thing that was supposed to kill everybody, right? So that's what happened. The bomb went off, and it was the most underwhelming thing ever. Now, this is really bad. I will say honestly, right? I will say honestly that shit happens. You know, everyone deserves a pass, but this is something that cannot be forgiven. This is one of the few things that does not deserve a pass. And here's why, motherfucks. Here's why, right? And again, I know I shit on AEW, but I always say it like I think. I always say it like it is. I don't shit on AEW just to shit on AEW. But this thing was horrible. Now, here's why it's horrible. Aside from the fact that the visuals didn't work, right, and it didn't look devastating at all, you spent several weeks promoting this match, and you spent 30 minutes with a countdown clock building up anticipation for this explosion, right? 30 minutes of telling the fans that in 30 minutes, some cool shit's gonna happen, right? Now, cool shit didn't happen. Again, maybe there was a technical difficulty. If that's the case, then it's excusable. Like, that kind of shit does happen, right? Maybe one of the big fireworks didn't go off or something, right? That's a different story. But the facts are what the facts are. This is one of, if not the biggest botch in the history of pro wrestling. People are comparing it to the Shockmaster's reveal. Now, unlike this, the Shockmaster tripped, right? That's just a mistake. That's an error that could happen because a man is a man, and a man sometimes trips. This is different, motherfucks. This is something that's pre-planned. More likely than not, unless the bomb didn't go off or whatever, right? People knew what was going to happen. Tony Khan and Kaki Omega and these guys knew what the explosion was going to look like, or at least should have known. They should have tested it out. They're like, oh, does this look good? No, it looks like shit. You know what I mean? Like, how does it look like if we record it, you know? So, that's why this is worse than the Shockmaster. It's worse than Jeff Hardy showing up drunk at Turning Point. It's worse than all of these things. Because all the rest of these things are human error, right? They are human error. A guy tripping, human error. Jeff Hardy getting drunk, addiction. You know, not good, obviously. It's also a horrible wrestling moment. But this was something that was planned to go down this way. This would be the equivalent of someone going to Jeff Hardy and being like, here's 2 bottles of whiskey and some PCP. Now go wrestle Sting, right? If someone planning this out and having it go this disastrously is ridiculous. You plan this out. Botches happen. And botches are forgivable because botches are usually human error, right? Sometimes when the human error is so ridiculous, like Shockmaster, they become a meme and they become laughable, right? Or when I watch a Sasha Banks or Kofi Kingston match, it becomes laughable the amount of botches they have. Because it just signifies to me that they're not good. They're not good enough at what they do. They're not athletic enough. They're not strong enough. They're not anything enough, right? So this, on the other hand, is a preparation. A preparation. And they prepared incorrectly, right? But they thought they prepared correctly. So, now the new story. Apparently after the event, Jon Moxley gets a mic and says like, oh, like Kenny Omega didn't build the bomb correctly. That's the same story Tony Khan is going with, right? Now, this doesn't explain why Eddie Kingston nearly died from a firecracker, right? Makes him look like a pussy, if you ask me, right? He nearly died from a firecracker. And 2, why the fuck would this be the decision that the storyline takes, right? The people that are writing the story, why would they come up with this story? Oh, there's a bomb, but it was a dud. It was a rib. Why would anyone write that story? The answer is, obviously no one would. The answer is, they don't know what the fuck they're doing because they're a low-budget company, right? And they didn't have the money to set up a real-looking explosion. You could pay someone 50 grand and they could set it up, motherfuckers. You could pay a special effects person 50 grand and they could set it up. Or at least add effects while on pay-per-view. Do like a 15-minute delay and then add, motherfuckers, some effects on TV, right? To make it look good. They didn't do either of these things. You know what I mean? They didn't do anything. They didn't even try. It was so low effort. This was like they probably told an intern, we're going to want to simulate an explosion. Figure it out. The intern went down to the local fireworks store, bought 5, sparklers, right? Used one on the playground for fun. And then took the other 4, put them on the corners, used 2 firecrackers, and that was it. That was the explosion. This was so low budget. It's preposterous. Like, one Cody Rhodes entrance costs more than this explosion. You know what I mean? So there you have it, motherfucks. This was complete horseshit. And the fact that AEW isn't really owning up to it, but they're trying to spin it as if it's like, as if that was like the intended storyline, is ridiculous. And then Tony Khan said, this was the icing on the cake. This fucking retard, you know, best booker of the year, by the way. This guy said, he's like, well, what did you want us to do? Explode the whole ring? And I agree. That's a good point. Nobody should expect people to blow up the whole ring. That's why people don't have dumbass matches where the gimmick is the ring will blow up. That's why people like Vince McMahon aren't stupid retards that do this dumb shit, right? They say something and they deliver with it. They say, 2 men will fight in a cage, and they bring you the cage. And that's what happens, motherfuckers. This guy says, the ring will explode. The ring doesn't explode. And then he says, well, what'd you expect, the ring to explode? Yeah, motherfucker, that's what you said would happen. That's what you fucking said. I expect you to find a way to make it look good and be fake so no one gets hurt. You know what I mean? That's what I expect. If you can't deliver, don't fucking do it. That's the problem here, motherfuckers. That's the problem. The problem is that people like Tony Khan think, and they probably are right, that they can get away with this kind of horseshit because the AEW fans are so stupid and they're so ingrained in their groupthink that it's impossible for them to criticize anything. Tony Khan could come and take a shit right on Kenny Omega's face. People will be like, yeah, it's good booking. It's good booking. Tony Khan really gets it. That's what people would say. The facts are what the facts are. The company promised something. They did not know how to deliver. They did not try to deliver. They did not deliver. And then they shifted blame onto the fans, let's be honest, by saying, well, what did you expect? You expected us to deliver? That's basically the argument. The argument is, we said we're going to blow up the ring. We didn't blow up the ring. And then you asked, why didn't you blow up the ring? And we answered, well, of course we're not going to blow up the ring. Why would we do that? So there you have it, motherfuckers. This is embarrassing. Everyone involved in this should be ashamed. If they come out on Wednesday and Kenny Omega says, oh, it was a rib, I believe that this company doesn't deserve to be in business because they can't even take responsibility for it, right? Now, before all the people that send me hate mail, send hate mail to the hater, before these motherfucks start saying things like, oh, hey, when WWE does this, blah, 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 right? First of all, that's not a good argument. You know, we're talking about AEW here. Yes, WWE also does dumb shit and fails at other things. But it's not normal for someone to see a company do something horribly and then instead of saying, oh, this was horrible, they just shift the blame completely. They're like, oh, but so is WWE. They're horrible too. And let me tell you this, motherfucks, to all the people that have been and likely will continue to send me hate mail, keep it coming, motherfucks. Keep it coming, right? If WWE did this, if this happened in WWE, people like Dave Meltzer would be all over it. The Smarks would be all over it. The hater would be all over it. Everyone would be all over it. No one would ever tolerate or defend WWE doing this. You see what I'm saying, motherfuckers? That's the difference. I saw people making excuses, being like, oh, well, what about the Fiend burning alive? The fire was real, motherfuckers. The body wasn't real. but it sure as shit looked more real than this. You know what I mean? Like, obviously it was also fake, and that's why I said it was shit. But the facts are what the facts are. If WWE had this kind of a botch, AEW fans would be like using this as proof that AEW is superior. So as far as I'm concerned, anyone that tries to justify this is a retard. It's as simple as that. They're just not very smart, or they're completely indoctrinated. This was indefensible, motherfuckers. You cannot defend such a thing. It was atrocious. So, oh my God, this video went up to 40 minutes in this motherfucker. All right, motherfuckers, there you go. We'll cut this short right now up in this bitch.